Hey there, Brian Bram from Eagles Wings Community Church. Once again, coming at you with the blog series on theologizing in the emergent church. And I apologize, I don't know that I have the best lighting here today, but we're going to make do and do the best we can with it. So my latest visit was to a Catholic church, and I actually expected myself to be much more critical than I was, but maybe through some education that I've gotten, maybe I've worked on some of the stereotypes and such. But at least in terms of the emergent church is concerned, probably the Catholic Church is going to fare the worst out of all of the churches that I visited, although probably the one that I was most critical of was the large megachurch, which is a Baptist megachurch. But at least in terms of the five major themes that we've been exploring, the Catholic Church doesn't fare well because, let's face it, that's a large part of what the emergent church is kind of emerging out of. So it does stand to reason a little bit. The one that we talk about mostly in the video series is the element of space, or the theme of space, and definitely there is a lot of sacred space that is really to be only utilized by certain, mostly clergy. There are times when it seemed appropriate for people in the congregation or the laity to come up on stage, for example. So there were certain things that they were occasionally invited into. They helped, for example, with communion, but really only after some of the clergy had already done some things, and so there was definitely a sense of space, a certain space that was for some and not others. I actually also visited recently a Catholic university where there were definite signs in a particular, monastic gardens that had a lot of signage that basically let you know that that was not an area for you to enter. Be that as it may, I tend to somewhat try to resist this idea that there's certain space for some and not others. I think that's a legitimate critique of not just the Catholic Church, but any church that sort of has that can happen. I've seen it even in non-denominational churches where there is certain places that the majority of people are never able to have access to. So in terms of the interview, that's the other part that we kind of explore in the videos. I wasn't able to interview two people, unfortunately, and I eventually just kind of gave up because, alas, I have a deadline to meet. And I did ask several people, reached out to several people. I'm not necessarily going to say, I don't think, in the video what that means, but I will say that certainly it means something. But that's one that I'm just going to kind of leave up to the viewers and readers. But I was only able to find one person to interview. And the person was very informative. So some of the things that I learned that were very interesting to me was, in terms of Christian education, there seems to be a serious lack of concern for that. There really isn't lots of major encouragement towards having people sort of study on their own. That's really left up to the leaders, the clergy, the priests, and such. So this person I interviewed confirmed basically that really there isn't much Christian education done there outside of the fairly short sermon. There's a major focus, however, on kids. So in terms of education, there is a focus on getting the young kids into the private Catholic schools. So and they're of course broken out by age and so on and so forth. But and it seems to be that those schools are well regarded as being good schools, and they seem to be one place that the student is able to be educated, as a whole child. So they're going to get spiritual education as well as academic education in those schools. But in terms of small groups or individual person studies, there's not a lot of encouragement to do that, unless of course you're feeling like you're called to be clergy. I think that spirituality, however, is encouraged. She kind of mentioned that, the person I interviewed. One of the questions I asked is what they like the most, and some of the things that they liked the most were that were really just the community. This person was from the area, so they knew a lot of people there, and of course a lot of them attended this particular church. And so that helps them to get involved, mostly, once again, around the K through 12 school. And they were able to do a lot of volunteering together as a community for doing different bazaars and fundraising. What was interesting, though, a lot of the volunteering, it sounded like, and the person interviewing kind of confirmed, a lot of it really had more to do with raising money for the church itself. There wasn't a lot of mention about raising money for the poor and such. That isn't to say that the Catholic Church doesn't do that. I think they have some avenues of doing that. But on a smaller local level, there wasn't a lot of awareness in that regard. Some of the dislikes, this person seemed to have quite a few dislikes. It really seemed to be that the school was the thing that was kind of tying this family into the church. So even though this person had a lot of critiques of the church, they still went there and were still fairly involved in the church. But a very repetitive Mass was a heavy critique. And this person kind of wished that they would embrace a little more how to sort of tie the message of Scripture into their daily life. What does this mean for me today? Kind of an application they seem to be lacking in. How can I apply this to my life? So, and then there was also one that was kind of interesting. It threw me off guard a little bit. Was just how this person felt like the priest couldn't really relate to a lot of marriage stuff because they, of course, couldn't marry, and so they felt like that was reason enough to really kind of think that that wasn't really a person they could probably go to for some good advice because they'd never sort of been there, done that. And it seemed like a lot of the involvement, there was some volunteering and that kind of thing, but there was definitely a heavy emphasis on financial involvement. Some of the unwritten rules, of course, were sort of being quiet, and then it wasn't so much an unwritten rule, but basically there was a big story about how this person kind of married somebody that wasn't Catholic, that was Lutheran, and before that person kind of converted, it was definitely made known that that person shouldn't, the husband in this case, shouldn't be taking communion because they weren't Catholic. So it was a little, actually more than an unwritten rule. That one was somewhere kind of stated. There was a lot of good things. I had a nice experience going there. The day that I was there, the message did seem to be somewhat. I was able to apply it to my life to at least take something away to sort of remember throughout my week and my life. And the people were nice. I had an enjoyable time. but definitely there is some room for critique there. The trouble, of course, in the Catholic Church is critique may come, but it's very, very slow to change. In some ways that can be good, but in others where change is really needed, I'm not sure that there's a lot of space for that. So that's my sort of analysis of the Catholic Church, and we'll move from here on to the actual emergent church in the next video. So blessings to you.